Services Committee to order. First item on the agenda is approving previous minutes.
Can I get the agenda, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then one from the board as well.
Everyone have their
I'm good.
Can I get a motion? Ms. Lockhart, Mr. Touche. All in favor? Opposed? Pass unanimous. Okay, now on to current business. Number 1 on the agenda, authorizing agreements with foster care providers for the provision of care services. Commissioner DeHagen.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So the department is requesting approval to renew contracts for the upcoming 2019 year for foster care agencies. Unfortunately, there are circumstances where a child, for reasons related to safety concerns, cannot remain in their home of origin, and so that we need to have contracts with foster care agencies to have some place for them to be while we work on whatever the concerns that brought the family to our attention and warranted the children needing to be removed from their home of origin. So attached is the list of providers that we have contracted with in the past and are requesting to continue to have approval to contract with them. This does not mean that we utilize every single agency that is on here, but certainly in recent history, having as many options in terms of being able to meet the various needs of children that come into the department's attention has proven to be of benefit.
Thank you. And is this a 1-year or a 2-year contract?
It is a 1 year with a renewal for, no, excuse me, yes, it's for a term of 2 with 1-year renewal agreements. So,
Okay. So after 1 year, it can be renewed.
right, exactly.
And I'm looking at the list, I notice a lot of these facilities are very far away, some are even out of the state, so is that, one's even in South Carolina? So
Yes.
some kids being shipped down to South Carolina?
That is not the first course of action. We always start locally and within the Albany County or surrounding areas, but I will say that, again, depending on the needs of the youth, there are times where local agencies have stated that they are not able to meet the needs and care for them, and so then we have to expand our search wider. The goal certainly is to keep them in state, but I will tell you that, again, due to recent circumstances, there have been youth that agencies within state have stated that they have not been able to meet their needs, and so it has warranted being able to go out of state.
Thank you. And are there specific, you mentioned recent circumstances, so are there specific circumstances that's leading to a lot of the local foster care providers?
Just in terms of the complexities of the youth, so I will say one youth that comes to mind most recently, it's usually involving mental health, developmental disabilities, as well as behavioral concerns. And so, sometimes it involves they're not being able to perform duties for themselves. And so when you get into the array of these complexities, we find that in reaching out to local agencies, the response has been that they are not able to meet the needs, and so then we do find ourselves then looking at out-of-state resources.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Touche?
Commissioner, the age range is infants through, 18?
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Bullock?
I'm interested in a different line of questioning on home of origin. Is there
Yes.
verification on home of origin of a foster child being given up by the parents on a voluntary basis? Is there some kind of verification on that?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding. When I use home of origin, I'm talking about the birth parent or the guardians
Right,
from
that's
whom we're
what I'm talking
removing.
about.
Okay.
And gave the child up voluntarily. Is there some kind of verification on that? Because I just read a disturbing article where
Okay.
parents, didn't voluntarily give up their children from Uganda?
Oh, okay. So when we're getting involved, usually when a child is being removed from their home of origin is because there is a safety issue. Now, that is not to say that we have not had circumstances where someone may have reached out to us and asked and wanted to do a voluntary, meaning asking the department to take custody of the child for whatever reason, why the parent feels that they are no longer able to care for that child. In those circumstances, I will tell you that the criteria around taking voluntary is very stringent and very restrictive, and so we assess whether or not that meets the criteria for a voluntary, or if we're looking at a situation that is more of a neglect warranting than a foster care removal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Ms. Lockhart, do you?
No, that's
have a
okay.
question?
Thank you.
Okay, can I motion to approve? Mr. Touche, is there a second? Ms. Lockhart, all in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimous. Number 2 on the agenda, authorizing agreements with foster care agencies regarding Raise the Age initiative.
And so this is specifically for those agencies that have been approved by OCFS to provide services for those youth that meet the criteria for Raise the Age. And so there were 12 programs that were licensed, certified by OCFS specifically for Raise the Age youth. And so these are those programs looking to be able to have approval to contract with them for any youth that meet that criteria to be able to have those services provided by these agencies that have been licensed to do so.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, motion to approve.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Pretty sure, unlike the last contract that actually, what was it, $1.6 million a year for 227 children for the foster care, do we have any idea of what we're facing? I know that's so difficult, but,
No.
because there's no numbers in here. because
There
we
is
don't-
no numbers, and I will tell you, we were able to provide that number just because we had been able to look at what the
The
cost
past.
had been to
Right.
date. I will say this, that there are maximum state aid rates that the state sets, and so we don't go above that. For the Raise the Age programs that have been licensed, their MSAR is $1,000 a day. So, depending on then they do a length of stay for a youth, for approximately 8 months, so 8 times approximately 30 days, 240 days times 1,000, 240,000. So, you get an approximate, but at this point in time, we can't say how many youth are going to go in that are going to fit that Raise the Age.
But we should be expecting that they're going to need similar services that we do for the younger population, mental health, substance abuse.
Oh, absolutely. And
on
I
and
will
on.
say,
We're
in
looking at
regards-
about $67,000 a year if it was even across the board for each child on the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that number depends, one child have more needs than another, so it's not exact. But I mean-
Right, it's not, and then it depends on level of care, so you have those that go into the
Right.
foster boarding home versus if they go into a therapeutic foster home versus if they go into a group home or a residential, so those rates are gonna vary as well in regards to actually what level of care.
And just one more within regards, because I know this raised age is all new everywhere, everybody's kind of trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Has the state so far agreed to give your department the money to cover?
Well, they have stated across the board that it's 100% reimbursement,
Okay.
so as long as we are tracking those
Okay.
expenses that are related to Raise the Age, we are supposed to get 100% reimbursement.
And the plan is it's like a county plan, it's not department specific, so
Okay.
it's actually like a larger overall raise the age plan that we had to submit.
I'm just aware that some agencies still don't know. They're being promised money, but they don't really know.
Well, it's like anything where the
Yeah,
state says, they have said capital construction for secure detention facility, they've said 100%
Okay,
of the payments on the debt.
okay.
And then for programmatic stuff, as the commissioner's been mentioning, they've said 100%.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Motion to approve. Mr. Reinhardt, Mr. Bullock, all in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimous. Item number 3 on the agenda, authorizing an agreement with LaSalle School regarding juvenile justice prevention services.
Yes, thank you. So we issued our prevention RFP earlier this year in regards to having contracted services for youth and families in the community. And the idea behind prevention services is really to be able to be proactive in providing services to families so as to mitigate them not having to come into the foster care door. And in those circumstances where a youth or family has become engaged in the foster care system, then being able to provide services to help them exit foster care as quickly as possible. And so LaSalle was one of the agencies that responded to the RFP in regards to the Juvenile Reporting and Family Center. And so this is a program that functions both for the prevention side as well as on our juvenile justice side. They're able to also provide programming as an alternatives to detention as well as an alternatives to placement. And they are able to service at LaSalle. They do the older males. St. Anne's does the females, and then St. Catherine's is able to service the younger siblings.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions from the committee? Mr. Bullock?
LaSalle is in my district, and they do 9 from 17 years old. What about the 18 years old? Are they getting service?
They would not get it through this, but there are other programs within the community that they would be referred to. That, certainly probation has those services, what they call PINS 18+, so there are programs that are available to them.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve? Mr. Touche, second Mr. Bullock, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. Number 4 on the agenda, authorizing an agreement with Steuben County Department of Social Services regarding non-secure detention services.
Yes, thank you. So this really is a request to be able to have a contract with Steuben as a secondary resource for non-secure detention services. We already have a primary resource with Berkshire. They facilitate that service, but there have been times when there has been a need to look outside of Berkshire, and usually it relates to not necessarily lack of availability, but sometimes there is a conflict where there would be a need to have youths not be in the same facility, and so it is of benefit to have another option in circumstances such as that.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Make a motion.
Motion, second Mr. Bullock, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to number 5 on the agenda, authorizing an agreement between the Departments of Social Services and Mental Health regarding services for safety net and TANF applicants and recipients. Commissioner McClave?
Good evening. Yes, this is a renewal of an MOU we've had for quite a few years with the Department for Mental Health with their case management unit to conduct assessments for substance abuse and alcohol concerns for clients who are TANF and safety net. It's a requirement if we identify a potential for substance use or alcoholism as a barrier to employment to get them assessed and develop a treatment plan, and then the CMU makes recommendations for further a course of action for the individual.
Thank you. Commissioner, I have a question. So is every person screened by one of the mental health experts,
No.
or is it a pre-screening?
Right. We do a pre-screening, and if we identify a potential for alcoholism and substance abuse, then they go to the CMU. So not
Okay.
everyone has that issue.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Bullock?
When you service these systems and you don't do them in-house and you go out-house on them, how much is that applicable for your operation?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
You know, when you have to have services and go, out of...
You mean when they're,
You need an external, like,
External,
entity to do what mental health was doing.
right.
if the CMU contract were to be bid out, is that what you're
Are you talking about individuals or like the whole contract for chemical dependency screening?
The whole contract.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since we RFP'd it, but we did do a little research a couple years ago, and we found out that there's not a lot of places that do this, and that the one place we did identify would have been significantly higher.
So you do it all in-house, that's all I'm...
Yeah,
That's...
in-house in the county, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's been that way, left there for many years. They've been doing it, so.
They have the expertise.
Good.
We don't have that expertise at DSS. That's why we need an outside entity to do these services, because we're not KSACs, certified alcoholism and substance abuse counselors. You know, we don't have that on staff.
So what employees for DSS refer applicants to the CMU?
So those are eligibility examiners.
Okay.
So they just do a pre-screening, they use a screening tool. If the person admits to potentially having an issue, then we make the referral and make an appointment.
Is it based solely on the person admitting to having
Yeah,
an issue?
or,
if
well, we can
they notice
observe.
someone stumbling and...
Yeah, if they come in appears to be under the influence, they will make a referral as well, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none. Motion to approve. Mr. Bullock. Second, Mr. Reinhardt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimous. Okay, number 5 on the agenda, authorizing... You're right, yep. Number 6 on the agenda, authorizing an agreement with New York State Office of Children and Family Services and Capital District Child Care Coordinating Council regarding registration services and administrative costs regarding daycare providers.
Yeah, we're asked by OCFS to develop a contract with the Child Care Coordinating Council so that they can do state functions of registering daycare applications, inspecting the facilities, handling complaints, and keeping a registry of all certified family and other daycare providers in the capital region, and this is for Albany. So the state provides $245,000, which is 100% federal money for the Child Care Council.
Thank you.
And this is also renewal. We've had this contract with them, MOU with them for a while.
Great. Are there any questions from the committee?
Make a motion.
Motion, Ms. Lockhart. Second, Mr. Touche. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. Number 7 on the agenda, authorizing the acceptance of grant funding and an agreement with the New York State Office of Temporary Disability Assistance regarding SNAP bonus award allocation and amending the 2018 Department of Social Service budget.
Yes, I believe we came to you in July and asked for approval to apply for this grant, which is the Technology Improvement Grant that OTDA, they received money from USDA, so it's 100% federal funding for improving technology around SNAP. And we submitted our plan for purchasing kiosks, self-service kiosks, some scanners, some outreach materials, laptop to do presentations and to enroll people out in the field. So we submitted that plan, and it's for $102,000, and we received approval for our plan, and we're requesting approval from the committee to accept that funding.
Great. Yeah, I remember you coming in July and speaking about applying for the grant. I'm wondering, have you decided where the kiosk will be placed yet?
Well, we know 2 will be at 162 Washington, so that will be right at our site there. And then we plan to see kind of how it works and how much support the kiosks need and how much staff is needed, and that will determine also where the need is in the community, and we'll determine where we're going to put those. And we may decide some place that has hours in the evening, you know, so that it's accessible in the evening for people because we're closing at 4:30. So we'll have to determine based on need, and we'll get some feedback from the community and providers about where a good place might be for those kiosks. And they have to be, protected, they have to be in a protected place, so it's gonna have to be in another indoor site.
Yeah, great, yeah, I think that's a good idea to
Yeah.
put it in a place where people can access it in the evening. Are there any questions from the committee?
How many sites you
Bullock?
got?
We'll have 4 kiosks, so we'll have 2 at 162 and we'll have 2 for the community.
Okay, and you haven't decided on the 2 for...
Not yet, no. We have to, yeah, I know. We were thinking of library,
It's just the
obviously a
South Wall.
library is.
We don't have 39, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I suggest the concourse on the South Mall.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
I'm done.
Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimous. Okay, number 8 on the agenda, authorizing agreements regarding moving and storage services for eligible temporary assistance recipients.
Yes, we're just asking for permission to enter into contracts with 2 providers. One is moving and storage and one is just moving. And we must offer this service to temporary assistance recipients who are homeless, who maybe had a disaster and lost their home, or in temporary housing or moving to permanent housing. Certain situations where people may have furniture and other items that to move to a new location. So we have only found 2 providers, actually. We looked at every provider that there was in Albany County and beyond, and these are the 2 that agreed to contract with us.
Thank you. Mr. Reinhardt?
I noted on the last page of our materials, it said how you contract with all willing and authorized providers, and then you just said there were only 2
Who were willing.
who were willing. So my
Yes.
question is, that means they're willing based on some sort of a schedule of rates that we say, can you do it for these rates?
They set their rates, and the clients are required to go to both of these providers to determine which is the cheaper rate at that time. So they look at, the number of boxes you have in the furniture and where you're going. So they set the rates based on that. They go out and assess. But for storage, we only have 1 provider. So
And-
their rates are the rates.
I have to say, I'm kind of a little, I don't know that there's much we can do about it. I'm a little disturbed that we're not doing an RFP for this kind of service. It seems like we ought to be getting quotes and all, but it sounds like you're telling us that
No one wants to deal with it.
there's,
Yeah.
nobody wants to do it.
Nobody wants to do it, so I'm afraid if we did an RFP, we would get no responses.
Is that what you really think?
I'm very afraid of that, yes.
Yeah,
People,
I agree.
They don't
Yeah.
want to deal with it.
I don't want to.
They deal with a lot of abandoned property and,
for the storage in particular, we have found that, our clients sometimes don't come and pick up their items. We only pay for so many months, and we stop paying. And if the clients don't come and pick up their items, the storage places are often stuck with the.
And they
Then we have those storage auction shows.
they can't get rid
Yeah,
of
but
them
they don't
now.
want to do that.
The
they're not
law says they
interested.
have to
And there's
hold on
also
to
a
the property.
process, it's no different than like a tax foreclosure, thing like that, they can't just say, oh, well,
Nope.
it's done.
Yeah. Can't
throw 'em
There's a
away.
process
They can't
involved with
declare
that.
them abandoned?
Nope.
Well, they can, but it's more than just saying it's abandoned. and
Months
hitting
down the
switch. It's
road.
not.
Do one more, yeah.
Months down the road.
Okay, are there any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve? Ms. Lockhart, a second, Mr. Reinhardt, all in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimous.
Late starter, huh?
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay.
Surprise.
McLaughlin?
Chairman, how are you?
Good, how are you? Item number 9 is augthrizing agreement. Does everyone have the? Give everyone a minute.
We went
All
over
right, I
this.
didn't mean to
We went over this. I
slip this one in.
why.
Sneaky Mike, huh?
Yeah. Is this now my permanent nickname? Sneaky Mike.
It suits you, Mike.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so number 9 is authorizing agreement with SUNY Center for Human Services Research regarding equity training for county departments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So this is the final contract in what's been a 3-year, 2.5-year process to develop an equity agenda and have a wholesale examination of both internal and external processes within the county with a focus, but not an exclusive focus, on our human services operations. This final contract is complementary of a position that's actually in the budget, equity coordinator. The completion of this contract will basically create an equity agenda, a governing document to direct that position moving forward. It will finalize the strategic plan, begin the implementation, set up the metrics at which we're going to measure ourselves related to progress, which I know is something that this body has consistently requested as whenever we come to you with requests for contract authorizations, is how do we track our success. Up to this point, I think we've had a great deal of success. One of the more important things that we've done is begin identifying points where our departments interact with the community and begin improving our training of those individuals, regardless of department. My colleague Bakri Jene, who everybody knows, to my left, has been intimately involved in this process. One of the first things that we did when we started the last contract was a training that was identified as necessary from the previous contract, which was a survey called Bridges Out of Poverty. And this training, frankly, was pretty eye-opening for a lot of our frontline staff, talking about folks who are living in the community, whether they be Child Protective Services workers or intake workers at DSS, for how to interact with clients, to minimize conflict, how to recognize the struggles that a lot of the lower income folks in our community are going through, and things like that. We've seen success just on a basic level. For example, in the county executive's office, we're seeing a decrease in the number of complaints that we receive, and those complaints that we do receive tend to be from repeat customers, which generally suggests there are other issues, which frankly we try to help with in other departments as well, but you know, the folks who come back to us with repeated issues have a tendency to have a whole host of challenges affecting them at one time. So this would be the final contract, and will set us on a course to continue our work, but do it internally.
Great, thank you. So is the training just for one point person from each department, or is it for
No.
the entire staff?
No, well, okay, well, it goes, so this is a broad initiative that goes way beyond training, right?
Okay.
So, there's a few things. The point person is each department, as you saw from the breakdown of cost, each department has a point of contact that is the primary individual that deals with this subject matter. But, you know, there's a lot more to this than just training. It's also an examination of our processes from hiring practices, just to kind of talk this through. For example, civil service, a department that in many ways has its hands tied in a lot of its processes, is really been intimately involved in examining how things work, how we can work with the state to be more flexible, to, how do I say this? So we have certain, let's just take from a gender perspective, we have certain departments that are largely one gender, and we have certain departments that are largely the other gender. So an examination of the reasons for that. Are those reasons, is there a way that we can make sure that things are being equitably applied, so that there isn't an artificial factor going on here that's causing the numbers to be off. So we're trying to make sure that there is equity of opportunity in all of our departments that isn't being affected by some factor that we're unaware of. So it goes well beyond just training. It includes a great deal of internal reflection about, okay, we've been doing these things this way for a long time. That's something that we hear a lot. Should we be doing them that way?
Great, well, I'm glad you're examining that, and I'm glad that you're moving forward with this study. I know that, I think I received a preliminary report on this maybe a year or two ago from the, I think it was before the report was complete. Is it now, is there another stage done yet?
No, so that was a question that came up, where is the equity agenda? That's what this is. That's going to be the guiding document. That'll be the foundational document for the position that I just referred to. I think the document you're referring to is the survey of all the departments. And that is also, it's not going to be a new survey, but setting up the tracking system related to updating those data sets moving forward is part of this as well.
Great, okay. Happy that you're moving forward with that equity agenda document. When that is complete, can you send that to,
Oh, yeah,
can you send it to
that'd be public
council and they can
information.
forward it to the committee or to the entire legislature? Mr. Mendon?
And one quick question, what's the timetable for the work and the final report?
Final report should, it would be, actually, I think we're shooting for third quarter next year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Also, so training is a part of this, right?
Yes.
It's one of many parts.
Yes.
And is the training for all staff in the county or just certain point people in certain departments?
Well, okay, so that's a yes and a no answer as well. So within each department, there's going to be different challenges. For example, let me give you an example. Department for Aging doesn't have a ton of direct interaction with the community because it's a contractual department that does a lot of its services through contractors. That presents this whole separate set of challenges, which will be examined. So training for them is going to necessarily be different than training for a department such as DSS or DCYF that has intaking individuals that are coming into their department, or more importantly, going into their homes, which is even more sensitive. So it's going to be different for every single department. And that's the whole point, is that this needs to be flexible, and the report needs to be exhaustive in the sense that we have different proposals for different departments, and now we have an individual that will be able to follow up on all of those things.
Great, and so this individual the title is Equity Manager?
Equity Coordinator.
Equity Coordinator. And that'll be
Equity
in what department?
HR.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
I'd like it, and I move its adoption.
Mr. Reinhardt, did you have a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that this has happened here in Albany County, but in the fake news, you'll hear stories about like the wedding cake company that didn't want to provide the wedding cake to the gay couple. They refused on religious grounds and that kind of thing. Does this touch on that issue? Like if we have employees who are either I'll call it insensitive to some of the populations that are being served, or they say they have religious reasons why they have trouble serving. Are we kind of addressing this issue at all in this work, in terms of
Yes.
like informing the employees, here are your obligations under
I mean, similar to,
County
yes.
law,
It touches on race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, what am I missing? Place, yeah, location, that's geographic location, which actually is not is a big one. Income, socioeconomic class, yes. Political party, for all that matter. Yeah.
All right, so hopefully that, by being out front on this stuff, we're going to eliminate some of these potential
That's the goal.
circumstances from raising issues. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and, I mean, just not to belabor the conversation, but when we first did the survey, everyone was like, well, we already do this. That's the whole purpose of our existence. We're already doing this. Yes, but let's examine how effective we are and what we can do to be more effective. So that was this second contract that we're ending now and starting this new one, that a lot of it was kind of bringing people on board And for those of you who'd like any more information, this was all kind of stolen, so to speak, from King County out in Seattle, Washington. They have a whole department, and we didn't want to go that route. That seemed a bit overkill. That's dedicated solely to this sort of thing. So we thought we were able to achieve it in a much more efficient manner.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, motion to approve. Mr. Bullock, second Mr. Reinhardt, all in favor? Opposed? Pass unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion to adjourn. Lockhart, second Mr.